beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, might as well say, would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?
All right, guys, welcome to the second edition of Smoking in the Garage with Ricky, sponsored by CAO. So, again, we're live right now. Please, anybody? Gary, are you a part of this?
We can hear you, Rick.
Doug, are you there?
What's up? I'm here, brother.
Right. Welcome, guys. So we have a special guest tonight. We have the marketing. You know what? I'm always going to say director. I know that's not their title. What is your title, Doug?
Brand manager of CAO.
Okay. It's more than that, bro. You're always going to be my marketing for CA. So welcome. And so what we're going to do tonight is share a little bit of insight about the factory, of course, but I also want to share some insight that Doug is working on, and so maybe we can ask Doug some questions about where's the future of CAO going, and so anything you want to know about 2020, 2021, maybe Doug can answer those questions for us. But welcome again, and we're going to start, again, just easy. This is what we're doing with these events is just relax, get away from all the craziness of the world and enjoy a cigar or two, and just, talk about cigars. So, Doug, why don't you start and introduce yourself and what do you do for CAO?
Yeah, so I'm Doug Baldwin, brand manager for CAO. So kind of what I do is a lot of the more boring businessy related stuff for the brand. Make sure the right people get paid at the right time. But the fun part we get to do is all the brand execution. So that's the strategy. What does the box look like? What do we call it? Where do we distribute it? What events do we get to go to? How do we promote them? Basically, what does Ricky need to really get the show on the road? And then, Ricky and I behind the scenes will a couple times a year head down to the factories, work on some new blends, test them out. Then I got my circle of friends that I'll sample them with, and he's got his circle of friends, which we met last week, that he'll sample them with, and then we'll kind of collaborate together to make sure that CAO's continuously bringing the best premium cigars to the market we can.
Perfect. And Gary, last week I really did not introduce you. And, what do you do for the company?
Yeah, so I manage basically all of CAO's events and all of our events that we actually run for the rest of the company too. So all of our other brands as well, like Macanudo, Punch, La Gloria Cubana, all of our other brands too. So anywhere you see Rick at any of our larger events and festivals, I am usually with them too, kind of doing all the logistics and managing all that on site, and then helping out with the behind the scenes for stuff like what we're doing tonight too.
Perfect. So again, I may be the face of CAO, but realize this: there's hundreds of people, if not thousands of people behind the scenes working together, making sure that the cigars that we want to get out to the market is on time. The tobacco is there for us to work with. The blends are right on par for what we smoked in the samples and everything that goes behind the scenes. So again, I'm going to be the face of CAO, the blender for CAO, but there's a huge team behind me to support me and CAO, make sure that everybody that comes in contact with CAO has a great experience from the cigar to the packaging to if you able to get out there and go to an event And so everybody has to be in a line. Anybody that steps out of line, it really stops that train in the track. So you think it's easy to get a cigar to the market, present that cigar and start to sell it and host events, but it is a lot of work to do that. So I'm lucky to have a great team to do that with us. Again, like we did last week, this is more of a Q&A. So any questions you have that you want to ask either me or Doug or Gary about CAO and the direction or the history of it, that is what we want to do today. In this program, we work with a team in St. Louis called Moose, and they're a great team to work with. And so they suggested to me that maybe later on after the event, can I share one little thing with you? So after this event today, maybe the last 15 minutes, I'm going to share something with you that you can do easily yourself in your house. And it's something that we do at the factory all the time. So look forward to that. And we'll definitely do that. I think if you do this, what I'm going to show you later on, tomorrow or with the friends, you can demonstrate what we're going to show you, how to do this and what it does for your cigar. I think it's going to be surprised at, how this affects your cigars. So just opening up, Gary, right now, any questions or?
It looks like the questions are starting to come through right now. Okay. The first question we have, I guess, is for both of you, but maybe a little bit for Doug, since he's here too, is just about the process, from when you have that first idea for a new cigar to when it's actually produced and manufactured by hand in the factory. Like, can you tell us a little bit about like the timing of that, like how long it takes and what that process is usually like?
Can we see Doug? I can't see Doug because right now I just see the garage presentation. Can we maybe show Doug? Can you highlight Doug?
Yeah, hey.
Okay, yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, my little video thing was off. Yeah, so I mean, Ricky and I, we work in separate places. So Ricky's down in Tampa, and I'm here in Richmond, Virginia. So, we spend a lot of time talking to each other, usually talk to each other every day, if not every couple of days. And, there'll be all those random times where an idea pops in my head or an idea pops in his head. And, then we usually hit the ground running. So sometimes it'll be, we'll talk to the factory and they'll say, hey, we got a really good crop of broadleaf this year. So we'll say, okay, let's do a broadleaf cigar. Or it might be as simple as, there's an opportunity that's opened up in terms of sales and distribution that we want to go tackle. So it's hard to say that it's like there's a specific formula, because it's kind of like, when does inspiration hit you? Sometimes, like Ricky talked about last week, it's a result of a last minute deadline. Like, we need a cigar to take to the show, and Flathead was born in a week. Sometimes it's like the cigar he was talking about last week, Bones, where we've been working on it for a couple of months now, and we're very excited to present it to everybody here probably by mid-May, early June. But for Ricky and I, it's not anything new. We've already smoked the cigar a bunch of times, so we've worked on the packaging, and Moose, that Ricky was talking about earlier, they've helped us develop that packaging, and we've worked with the factories. We've gone down to the Nicaragua to make sure everything's going right. All the suppliers are lined up, our sales guys are ready to go, and it's just a matter of, when do we actually get to hit the go button, which is very frequently based off of when do the cigars actually arrive stateside. So, the process, probably your worst case scenario, you can probably get a cigar from idea to the market in maybe 3 months, but that is not a timeline you'd ever want to commit to, because so many things can go wrong between, your cigars could get stopped by customs, or, there's a supply shortage on a specific leaf you wanted to use. So typically we try to go at least a year in advance.
Yeah, because right now we're talking about, 2020, is already in the books, kind of. And I remember in January, February, we started to talk about 2021. And so, yeah, typically for us is, 6-month window is perfect for us because that gives enough time for Doug to get all his, people online, packaging guys, box designs, band designs. So if I had to pick a time frame, 6 months, a year to get a cigar out to the market, because God knows, anything happens if you shorten that period, and they say we run out that box, the where you want to make that box from. We can't, and you're scrambling to figure out how can we make a new box. So typically 6 months, a year, the company will give us, and then we'll take it from there. Excellent.
All right, so this next question is from Mike Young, and he is fairly new to the cigar world, and he is curious how we start the blending process. Like, do we start, with the wrapper of the cigar first, or is that already predetermined? What is the blending process like?
You know what, we talked yesterday, last week about typically any manufacturer highlight, or we're going to highlight the wrapper. The wrapper is the most important component of your cigar because that is where your flavor comes from. But sometimes, reverse that, we want to showcase the blend. So if you look at the Amazon Basin series, it's all about the blend, not the wrapper. Colombia is another sample that is highlight the blend, not the wrapper. But 90% of the time, and not 95% of the time, it's going to be the wrapper. So we start with the wrapper, but really it starts with people reaching out to Doug, and Doug looking at the whole line and say, you know what, Ricky, we have not launched a mild cigar in a while. Okay, so that's a target. What flavor would you want from that mild cigar? That is going to area that we're going. So is it Connecticut? Is it from the the DR? Is it from Brasilia? But to answer their question, is the wrapper is the most important thing that we offer you guys. So typically it's the wrapper first, and then we start to play the blends to see what blend will highlight that wrapper, not take away from the wrapper.
All right, so the next question is from Christian, and he's wondering if there's any chance that some of CAO's retired cigars will ever make a reappearance. And he's specifically talking about cigars like Osa Sol, which was one of his favorites.
Doug?
So some of our cigars, when they get retired, sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, that leaf's too hard to get, so can't really provide it anymore. A lot of times when this happens, we'll try to work our best at the factory to make sure we can get something else that tastes very similar. Other times, we retire cigars just because they don't sell as much as they used to. Every once in a while you get a line like Flathead, which is a huge hit, really successful. So we'll just keep it going. Brasilia is another good example, and that cigar I think turns 20 years old tomorrow or next year. You keep them going, but then you have cigars that do really, really well for a couple of years like Osa did, and then they just kind of gradually kind of fade out. Now, there's still a couple of stores that sell Osa. I think lot 54 and lot 58 are still available, but they're harder to find. If you reach out to us on social media, we can try our best to try to figure out a store in your area that sells to you. Our social media team's pretty good at getting information to us, and then we can go and figure out, oh, well, we sold it to, so-and-so cigar shop, which is maybe one zip code over from you. So if you are having trouble finding an old one, just reach out to us on social. You can find us at CAO Cigars.
My question to you, Doug, I know that when you came on board, you really spent a lot of time looking at the whole line. And there was a couple of cigars that you knew that was a very good cigar, a great cigar, a great cigar, but you were worried that you wanted to update the package. Why would you do that? Why would you update the package? Especially a cigar Gold that's selling great for us.
Yeah, I mean, CAO Gold's this absolutely terrific blend. It's I think the Ozgenders first blended it back in '95 with actually Placencia way back then. And you know, but if you think about where CAO started, you know, it was just a really small family-owned company. And as it grew in success, you saw it grew in ambition as well, where it started having a lot more really good quality packaging and cigars. And there was always Gold, this absolutely terrific, you know, mild to medium Ecuadorian cigar, but it just didn't, kind of gets lost on the shelf nowadays, especially as you've seen a lot of these boutique guys coming in, building their brands, increasing their distribution. And, you know, so much of what you see is the packaging, especially if you're thinking in that brick and mortar area where you're shopping around looking at all these different cigars. A lot of the really truly great classic cigars are starting to get lost on the shelf with a lot of these new really cool exciting cigars. So we figured for a blend as great as the CAO Gold, we needed to kind of focus on maybe retelling that story and updating that packaging and making it a little more exciting, a little more elegant, kind of deserving of packaging that really exemplifies how great that blend is. So probably mid-May, early June, you'll start seeing the new CAO Gold packaging come out. I'm really excited about it because it's absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, that is such a great blend, always has been. I think Cigar Aficionado actually just gave us a 91 on our torpedo size a couple of months ago. But it is just in this very kind of old traditional packaging. We wanted to make it, you know, a little bit newer, a little bit more exciting. And also printing companies are better now than they were 30 years ago. You know, you can get from one of your suppliers in terms of how nice the foils and the embossing and everything is. It's like, it's not any more expensive to redesign it, and it looks a lot better now because, you know, a long time ago, there's only a handful of people in the industry that were even supplying it. Now, as the cigar boom has gone on, as more and more companies are starting to release cigars, you're starting to see more and more companies wanting to be, you know, suppliers for them, whether it's a box or whether it's a lighter or whether it's a band. You know, these are all things that are available now that weren't available 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
So let me ask you this question. If you're going to change the packaging, are you just going to change the cigar at all or not?
On Gold, we're not touching a thing, man. That cigar is fantastic.
Exactly.
You know, might be some times where you look at an old blend and you say like, hey, this is fine, but if we threw in a little bit more Ligero, we could bring out a little bit more body. Yeah. So we might do what we call blend maintenance. We'll take some of our older cigars and just kind of touch them up. You know, palates change over time and consumers might grow out of taste of something, but it's not hard to change the blend just a tiny little bit. We don't do it very often. More oftenly, what we do is if we're going to look at an old blend that was really great, like say CAO Britalia, which was kind of a fun little project that CAO did back in maybe like 2005 it was. Those are some of the things where we'd like to, especially Ricky and I are always talking about. There were some really great classic CAO cigars where we still have that original recipe book. We can still make them. So it's not uncommon that Ricky and I will call up the factory and say, hey, can you make us up 6x50 of Carnival? You know, because when that was first released, I want to say it was what, a 6.5x60 box press. So there's a lot of cigars that we will go back to classic old cigars and we'll just try them in a new Vitola, and it might be the inspiration for a great limited edition. Later this year, we've got a 25th anniversary cigar coming out. So CAO's turning 25. And, you know, that started with an old classic blend of CAOs that we kind of, you know, dusted off the recipe and then kind of threw our touch on it. We'll probably look for that come June or July.
So I know that we're going to do that with Gold. Anything else that you plan on doing repackaging for that you can speak about right now, or that's for 2021 or?
Yeah, I mean, down the line. So this guy right here, absolutely fantastic Cameroon cigar. You know, I think it was one of the highest rated Cameroons when it first came out. Still to this day is one of the higher rated Cameroons. And it's this absolutely wonderful Ricky and I always have a disagreement on Cameroon for anyone listening. I love Cameroon. Ricky appreciates it, but it's not his favorite.
Well put, bro. Well put.
So anyway, you know, we're looking at some of these older CAO packaging that, and like some of these changes through the years were the result of FDA telling us, hey, you have to put this warning label on, which means that the artwork had to change. And, you know, they weren't always, you know, it wasn't always as seamless as we would have liked. So now we've got clearer guidance from what we have to do with our packaging. And we're taking a look at some of the older CAO cigars and thinking, we can embellish them a little bit better, because a lot of these cigars are great. We don't want to touch the blend at all because they're perfect, but they get lost at retail now, and we want to give them a little bit more exciting packaging, because we know at the end of the day, when our consumer's holding up that cigar, there's definitely some value with that cool band that he can show off. And if you're holding the cigar and it's just kind of like this boring band, it's fine, but why not treat yourself to something a little bit nicer, because it doesn't really cost you anything more.
Yeah, but the car business does that all the time. If you look at the Mustangs from the 60s, they don't look like the Mustangs from the 2000s. So the car companies do it. Everybody does it. Clothing does it. Why not us? So what we don't want to do is touch your favorite cigar that you're going to be able to purchase a new packaging. But believe this, that cigar is not going to be touched. And back in the day when we did redesign a couple of cigars in the early 2000s, especially there's one cigar that we repackaged called Excalibur, and everybody was saying, no, you changed the blend, and we didn't. But eyes sometimes kind of kid yourself, and you think you're going to change, but why would you change something that everybody enjoys? All we're going to do is try to update that package and make it more approachable for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at like some of the big companies like Coke or Pepsi, they have this iconic packaging, but if you look at it over time, you'll see like, wow, that doesn't look anything like it did 50 years ago. So, as more people experience the brand, as it grows, as it gets bigger, as you get that exciting growth where you got new consumers talking to you. Sometimes it's helpful to make the box a little shinier, because more people get to enjoy it. And the guy that always loved it, he's going to feel rewarded by, hey, that's an even cooler band than the old one. But it might appeal to a new guy. Now you got more people enjoying cigars, more people to talk to at the shop.
All right, Gary.
All right, so you guys talked a little bit about palettes changing over the years. So we have a question from Jake, and he is wondering for both of you, but I guess you can start with this one, Rick. Are there any cigars that you initially were not a fan of that later on, all of a sudden, those became your favorites?
Yeah. Maybe I appreciate more of the mild cigars that I did back in the day. Because when I started to smoke, especially when I started to work with General Cigar, I was hearing full body, and I thought that if I don't smoke a full body cigar or learn to enjoy a full body cigar, I can't be a part of this club of cigar smokers. But talking to the legendary blenders that I had the honor to work with, like the Benjis and Ernesto Perez Criollos and all that, says, bro, you're crazy. Why would you start to smoke one style, like one body, and shut out 30 or sometimes 70% of your humidor? So now I enjoy a mild cigar, but the timing that I do enjoy that cigar is everything. So after a steak dinner, I'm not going to reach for like a gold, because I know that steak dinner was going to overpower. But today, do I really want to start my day with my newspaper and a cup of coffee and smoking a 6x60 flathead? It's a great cigar, but for me, that timing is not right. That cigar is perfect for after my steak dinner. So as a blender or a fan of cigars, you have to realize the most important thing is when you're going to enjoy that mild, medium, and full body cigar. And so if you are a guy that, nope, I only smoke milds, I don't care, medium bodies, I don't care, that's fine. But I think you need to kind of re-experience some of the other blends and just find the right time for you to enjoy that cigar.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when Ricky and I were working on the Flathead V19, which came out, I guess, last year. I was on a full-bodied kick because we were, trying to work with the same, base blend, but we wanted to tweak the primings to really come out with a much more powerful version of the Flathead. And the Flathead's already in that medium full camp to begin with. So it wasn't like an easy task to say, hey, I want this to taste just as good as the original, but be stronger. That means you have to start getting into fermentation techniques. You start have to work about how differently you age the tobacco. So it's a huge process to take something like that. But I was on this big full body kick for a while, where I was smoking all the full bodied cigars I could, and just kind of say like, you know, is this right? Does this feel good? And when we moved off of that project and we started to work on the gold packaging, I was smoking milds again, and I was like, man, I forgot how good a nice mild cigar can be every once in a while, because it's not something where you're like, you know, you start getting into this like full body overdrive. I'm smoking, you know, CAOs, I'm smoking LFDs, I'm smoking all these full bodied cigars. And then all of a sudden it's like, now we're working on CO Gold. And I remember I smoked a Mac Cafe for the first time in a while. And I was like, man, this is a really good cigar. I haven't smoked one of these in a long time, and it really is terrific. So like Ricky said, it's not just that there's the time of the day where you want to smoke that cigar. Sometimes like you'll go a couple of months on a kick where you just want a specific style of cigar, and you'll try a whole bunch of different ones in that style. But then all of a sudden you kind of just, something kicks off, or you move to something new and you try something. You're like, man, I forgot how great these were, even if it's been years since you had one.
You know, I could
A lot of those old classic cigars are like that.
I could share this story with you that Benji shared with me. The terms mild, medium, and full body comes from the Cubans. And when they were working in the factory, they knew that in the morning they maybe had some toast and a coffee, and their stomach is kind of empty. So they reach for a mild cigar. After lunch, you ate lunch, but you know maybe a sandwich, and your stomach is halfway filled up, and then they reach for after lunch a medium body cigar. After dinner, they have a huge dinner, and their stomach is full. They reach for a full body cigar. So if that helps you kind of understand what we're doing, that's going to be good for you. But again, if you're stuck in this one body and you're scared to reach up to, if you're like a medium body smoker, I can't not smoke a full body cigar, I would recommend you not smoking your first full body cigar in a shop, just in case you get that effect, or you're dizzy, you don't feel good. So buy one of the full body cigars, go home and tell your wife, your family, your mother, say, just watch me. If you come outside and you see me laying on the ground, please help me. But, I think you'll be surprised the bodies that you can enjoy, and it has to be the right cigar for you.
Yeah, I mean, my dad, so when we came out with Session last year, my dad was smoking a couple of the test blends with us, and he is very much like, he prefers that mild to medium. You know, his favorite cigars of all time are, some of the old Partagas Yellow Box, or the Mac Cafe, or maybe an old Romeo. And when we were working on the Session, to me, that's kind of like a medium bodied cigar, but to my dad, that's still very much a medium plus full bodied cigar. And he smoked, he's like, that's a terrific flavor. And he stood up and he had to sit back down. He was like, ooh, that snuck up on me. So I remember we were smoking another one. He's like, ooh, I don't know if I want that. And I was like, well, let's smoke it after dinner. So we had a nice family dinner, my mom and dad and me, my wife and the kids were all kind of hanging out. And then my dad and I went out to the back patio, smoked a cigar, he lit up a Session. He's like, you know what, this is great now. I can really enjoy this. But that's because he had, a full stomach, he had, was the beginning of the day. It was, he was kind of ready for it at that point in time.
Yep. All right.
And then the flavor is what got him, because since the body wasn't something that was in the way, he was really allowed to appreciate the flavor. So I think that's the other trick is, if you smoke maybe a cigar at the wrong time of the day, or, on an empty stomach, you might be overpowered by the body and not actually get to appreciate the flavor.
And so I'll share this secret with you. If you ever smoke a cigar and it does start to play with you, and all of a sudden you kind of get dizzy, the best thing to do is drink a soda, a Coke, eat some candy, get some sugar into your system. And that feeling of you being kind of not sick, but dizzy and all that will go away in minutes, more than a half an hour down the line. So there's trick to help you enjoy a full body cigar, a medium body cigar, if you're a mild cigar guy, and timing is one. And if it does kind of kick you in your butt, just reach for something sugar based and eat that or drink that, and I think you will be good to go in less than 15 minutes.
Yep.
All right, Ricky, this next one is for you. You mentioned working with some legendary blenders like Benji. So this question is from Matthew, and he's wondering if there's any other blenders out there that you've always wanted to work with to create a new cigar or a new blend.
You know, for me, I'm so lucky that I have some legendary guys that I can reach for. The opportunity has never been presented to me. Of course, when I get around other blenders, we talk about this, but it has to make sense for General Cigar and CAO and the other company. You know, like I said, we have a great partnership with AJ right now, working on some blends for punch and all that. So yeah, I would, you know, I would never say no to that opportunity. But right now, I would lend to Doug to say to Doug, whatever you need me to do for the company, I'll do. But right now, I don't need to reach out to anybody else because I have just a library of a gentleman that's been working in the business for 20, 30, 40 years that I can reach out to and work with. But if you hold my foot to the fire, I would say I think I would say I would love to work again with Ernesto because Ernesto was really the first blender that I worked with that really spent a lot of time with me before I worked with Benji and fermentation. And so if I had to choose one, I would say Ernesto would be by far the first one I would reach out to say, I have the, you know, the opportunity to work with anybody. Ernesto, can we work together again?
All right, this next question is for Doug. And without giving away too much information, Dan wants to know what your fantasy cigar would be to create. So something that you haven't yet created or manufactured, but something that you would absolutely love to do.
All right, so I like a lot of different cigars, but full-bodied is more where I'm at. So I like the V19 was a dream for me working on that cigar because it was just so much fun to, you know, work with the different fermentation techniques and the different agings. So for me, it's probably going to be some kind of Maduro wrapper, probably like a San Andreas or broadleaf, and then really work with maybe different fermentations where we either, you know, crank the heat up but let it sit a little bit longer, or we, you know, shorten the fermentation technique just to bring out the different characteristics of the tobaccos. And then I love working on exotic tobaccos. So whether that's different pipe tobaccos, like, you know, you've seen, but there's a way to create a similar taste with a cigar to bring out different characteristics. So I think for me, like a dream cigar would probably be a mix of some kind of a nice full-bodied Maduro wrapper with some kind of unique exotic tobaccos, whether it's getting to work on a new version of the Amazon Basin line, or even talking to people in the DR who have access to some very old, kind of cool, unique tobaccos.
You know what? You were very excited the last trip to the factory in February. We went to a local manufacturer in Nicaragua, SLE, and they were showing you and me some old tobacco that is grown in, but the fermentation process is something that we have never seen. And can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, what we learned about, and you talked a little bit about this last week with the Amazon Basin project, is that Berganca tobacco, you know, it's we don't really know a lot about the seed strain that it came in, but we know a lot about the fermentation that they use, where they bind it up in that Yawa wood and then they bury it under the tree. And we know that that significantly changes the characteristics of the tobacco. Typically, it makes it a little bit stronger. It adds a sweet flavor to it. And you can do a similar technique with your traditional Habano tobacco grown in Nicaragua. But you can do all sorts of different kinds of fermentation to create the tobacco. You don't just have to, you know, put it in pilones and let the heat naturally rise up. You could try, you know, burying it in volcanic soil. So one of the things we definitely are going to be excited to work on in the future is using some of these really unique, archaic tobacco techniques that they're not typically found in the commercial setting of the cigar lounges, but they're definitely, you know, 200+ year old fermentation techniques that a lot of the locals use for their own cigars. No one's really ever been able to figure out how to commercialize them. But one of the real benefits of working with General Cigar is it is actually very easy for us to do a lot of the small batch things because, you know, we have a lot of very successful big lines, and that frees up the ability for us to go do pet projects where we can do really unique and exciting things. And since we've got, you know, like Ricky was saying earlier, we've got a lot of people behind the scenes that are all incredibly talented and do wonderful jobs, whether it's guys in, you know, the factories, the blenders, even the purchasing teams, you know, guys who can travel the world and buy rare tobaccos. That's something that we can actually, we can take advantage of. And it's one of the great things about General Cigar working with CAO now is that it's easier for us to do these things.
And the beauty of working for CAO, for Doug and I, we're not painting a corner. If you look at the DNA of of CAO, they founded the business on unique tobaccos. The unique tobaccos, the first guys that offered Italian tobacco on the cigar, or Brazilian wrapper. So it's in the DNA. So we're just continue that story. So if we had the ability to reach out to show a guy shows us a fermentation process is only done in Nicaragua, that's it's interesting to us, and we're going to jump on it and see if we can work. Now, if that tobacco, when you smoke it, is I don't care what technique you're using, that is awful tobacco. So pass on that. But we were very surprised about tasting that tobacco buried under the soil, the ash for the volcano, and that was we both looked at each other like, okay, we need to do something with this tobacco.
Yep.
All right, Doug. So you are definitely on the same wavelength as one of our viewers. So one of the first questions we got tonight was specifically about exotic tobaccos. So his name is Kurt. So he loves the Amazon series, and he's wondering if there's any other, countries or parts of the world that you guys have been looking into, like say Peru, for other types of tobacco. Like if you have anything else on the horizon besides just the Amazon series for exotic tobaccos.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky and I are currently working on probably 2, maybe you could argue 3. One's very theoretical at this point in time, where we've identified these unique strains of tobaccos and or fermentation techniques that really bring an entirely new flavor profile to a cigar. Where maybe we don't have to change a whole lot, but if we replace all of, the Habano from, the DR in this blend with a different type of Habano wrapper or a different type of Habano leaf that's fermented in a unique way. And what's funny is as we started this project, which, early 21 is when we'll release the first, we're gonna call it CAO Arcana, is, we found out that kind of like right under our noses in a lot of the farms that we've been going to purchase tobacco, there's a little section where, the farmer or the growers, they're trying to do something unique just for themselves. So we found out that there's all sorts of different ways that, you can treat even traditional tobacco, but make it something you've never had before. And then there's always, tobaccos that it's like you've never even had before. Like you can take a Habano seed, one of the old Cuban seeds from the Wayback Machine, and you can go grow it in a soil that no one's ever grown the tobacco in before, and it's going to have a different taste. So it wasn't that long ago where, they took the, is it the Isabella strain of tobacco, and they started growing it in Hawaii, and that's got a different taste to it. But that's also, I think, the same seed strain that makes Cameroon what it is, which tastes nothing like that. So you definitely have a lot of these opportunities where even if it's not something that's commercially viable today, it doesn't mean we can't make a relationship with that farmer and then say, let's try to grow these seeds in your soil because it might have unique flavor characteristics that we've never tried before. And then if it's good and it's commercially successful, then it's something that you might scale and then start doing more cigars with it.
All right, so this next question is also, while we're on the same topic as the Amazon series, this question is from Todd. So he's curious what the twine is in the Amazon series that we apply to the outside of the wrapper. And if you could talk a little bit about what that process is like to actually apply it.
Yeah, I can share this story. When we were, first working on the Amazon series, I remember that we knew the blender was done, and I remember that time they came to me, what is the band going to look like? And I said, you know what? I want a dirty band, so I want a white band we're going to stain it with coffee and mud and make it look like it took a journey through the Amazon. And the roller that Doug and I use all the time was sitting behind us because if we change a blend, you know what, add more Lajero to it, they just make it for us right there. And so he turned around and said, hey, how about this? And he showed us that band. I said, okay, number one, what is that band? Oh, this tobacco. When you have the tobacco leaf, especially the wrapper, we trim the outer edge because we believe that outer edge is kind of bitter, but also the reason we trim it to apply it to the cigar, it looks even. So we always trim that. And he simply took that trimming and rolled that. And I said, this is excellent. Do it again. And he did it again, and we started timing. And it took him for just the one cigar about 7 minutes to apply that band to. You know, roll that little string and apply it. I said, okay, we need 500,000 cigars. Average of 7 minutes, we can launch this project in 3 years. And so the manager of the factory said, follow us, take some of the tobacco. We went to the back of the factory, and we have a machine that we make twine to tie the hands of tobacco to hang them. And we started to feed this tobacco through this machine, and sure enough, it made like a string. And so we took that and we applied it, and it took us about a minute to apply that band. And now we can apply that band in less than 30 seconds. And that is, so that's the reason we want you to smoke through it, because it is part of the wrapper. A lot of guys smoke through it. A lot of guys take it off. It's up to you. And if you enjoy it, smoke through it. But that's the reason that Doug came aboard and realized a lot of guys were reversing the cigar. And so typically when you have a cigar, you cut the foot and cut the top or the head and light the foot. And a lot of guys were now doing this. And so you can't do that. So Doug says for their next version, why don't we start that twine or that leaf in the bottom so they can get that effect throughout the cigar. And that's the reason, if you look at that cigar, it's the only cigar of the 4 cigars starts at the foot and goes over all the way to the head.
Yeah, the Oriana.
So before we get to the next question, we also wanted to remind all your fans out there, I know this was popular last week, if they go to cigarworld.com, we are doing a bunch of giveaways. I don't know if you've got that lighter right there, Rick, but Rick has this awesome CAO Lotus lighter.
You got, okay.
There you go. Yeah, Doug's got one. So all you have to do.
Also, Gary, we're going to.
Oh, the Really Bro.
The Really Bro t-shirt.
That's awesome.
Graduation picture of high school. So all you do, if you're chosen a winner today, we're going to send you one of the t-shirts. So all we need from you, if you win the t-shirt, contact Moose or go through I don't know how we're going to do this, but we'll do it. But give it the size, and then we'll ship one of that out to you.
Yeah, so we're going to be giving out everything through Cigar World. So all they have to do, really easy, just 2 steps. You go to Cigar World, just hit register. So you actually just log in, register to be a user, and then join the CAO fan group, and that's it. So once you're a member of the CAO group, we're actually going to be picking people that were on tonight to win all these prizes. So yeah, you'll be eligible to win one of the shirts or one of those really cool Lotus lighters. So we've got a bunch of questions right now. Everyone wants to know what you guys are smoking right now. And then also if you guys have a favorite cigar, a favorite CAO. So both of those.
So I'm smoking the V19 right now, but I'm ready to light up my new favorite cigar, the Session. And like Doug said earlier, you get into this groove and you smoke all, this one product. Right now, I smoke about 2 to 3 of Sessions a day because I love that cigar. So right now I'm smoking the V19, but my go-to cigar every day is the Session.
I'm smoking the Cameroon right now, and it's almost done. And I'm gonna move either to a Session, or I found one of the original Zocolos in my humidor. I might treat myself to that.
Really? Well, you know what, Zocalo. Any chance we can ever relaunch Zocalo?
There's definitely a chance we can relaunch Zocalo. So when we first did that, we were kind of limited because we didn't really have any Mexican wrapper, but I know a guy. So we don't have to do limited editions anymore. We can actually do a full-time launch.
Okay.
But you're gonna have to wait, you know, it's not ready today.
We're sharing all the secrets today. You know, we need to spread it out. Spread it out. I'm sorry, Doug.
It's all right. Building anticipation, you know. It's kind of like you know, in the video game community, they'll tease out a game, or even in movies, they'll do a teaser trailer, and you're like, I have to wait 8 months for that? And it's like, yeah, you do. Sorry. Like, you cannot see that movie today, but we'll let you know that the movie exists so you can see it one day.
Now, my favorite cigar, if I had to go to an island right now and smoke for 1 month, one cigar, I would choose the Spark Plug from Flathead. I think that is my favorite Flathead cigar. The size, the combination, the body, the flavor. For me, it would be that cigar right now to go with that island for a month and only smoke one cigar.
That's a great one. The original CAO Carnival from, I want to say 2013, that was an impressive cigar. That's got to be one of my all-time favorites. You know, hard to find nowadays. Luckily, I can call the factory up and have them send me a couple. Usually they're fresh, and I got to stick them in the humidor. But that's definitely one of my all-time favorites. Now, if it's something that I could get pretty much every day, like a non-limited edition CAO, the regular Brasilia, the Samba, the Torpedo, I love that cigar. So that might be my favorite.
So Gary, a couple more questions before we end. But a quarter to 8, we'll start to talk about the little techniques I want to show these guys to, you know, share with their friends and all that. So a couple more questions. Gary?
I think he's on mute.
Yeah, Gary? Gary?
All right, well, I'll pull up a question here.
Okay.
All right, what is your favorite cigar to go with beer, bro? From Ann and Paul in Pittsburgh.
All right, number one, I love you guys. You know how much I love you guys. But for a good beer, I would say I enjoy the Nicaragua. It's because, you know, I'm not a beer kind of that guy that drinking every variety. I'm a Bud Light, a Miller Lite guy. So I think the Bud Light, Miller Lite would be perfect for me. So I would pair that cigar with the, you know, or that beer with the Nicaragua for me. For you, Doug?
So, I mean, if I'm drinking like a nice stout or a porter, like a nice dark beer, which is probably my favorite beers, I like to go with kind of fuller bodied, sweeter cigars. So I tend to lean on Maduros or, you know, the Oriana. The Oriana to me goes great with like an imperial stout, and you get it really brings out the sweetness, almost raisiny flavor of the Oriana. And it kind of I know some people when they smoke the Oriana, they talk about the spices a lot, but for me that sweetness is the flavor that I find the most appealing about it, and I find the beer brings it out the most if you have like a nice dark ale.
A best pairing for Maduro was taught to me by Ernesto, and he loved to pair a Maduro with root beer. And he says that combination of that sweet tobacco and that flavor that you get from a, you know, a good rich, a special that soda is a great combination. So maybe you can try that one day. Root beer with your favorite Maduro cigar.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see.
One more.
Yeah, there's a couple here.
Okay.
Give me a second. All right, here we had this question last week, but it's still worth talking about. When are you guys coming up with a Lancero? I'm a huge Lancero fan.
Doug, that's a great question for you. I can make them, but market them. So you tell me, the story behind that, and if we want to.
Yeah, I mean, Lanceros they're awesome. So we've got the flathead. Was it 6x42? Which is a great Lancero. Lanceros are one of the cigars that a lot of cigar nerds, for lack of a better term, really like. They definitely bring out the flavors. That wrapper works really hard on a Lancero because it's like such a bigger piece of the pie, so to speak. The problem that we have a lot of times with the Lanceros is that they just don't sell as well. So, I mean, for us, when we're thinking about doing a launch, typically the sizes we focus on are the Robusto, Toro, and Gigante sizes. But we always have conversations about Churchills and Coronas and Lanceros because they typically just don't sell as well, but they're great cigars. So, I mean, for us, there's always those pet projects where like, ooh, I really want to do this in a Lancero. But we always just have to tamper our expectations when it comes time to sell it because there's just a lot of people who, especially casual cigar smokers, they just don't gravitate towards that. By no means does it mean it's not great. It's harder to sell it. So at the end of the day, everyone's got a boss. But I would say that, Ricky and I are definitely interested in the idea of as we start looking into some smaller batch and limited editions, that there's definitely an excitement about working with some Lanceros.
What I've noticed too, Doug, most of the Lanceros in the market right now focus on that medium plus body to full body cigar. Maybe we can get together and one day make a gold and see if that gold would, because if you look at Macanudo, one of their biggest sellers is the Portofino. And so maybe that combination of that, because the gold really highlights that wrapper. That is the purpose for that cigar. So that is something that we can offer the fans of CAO, limited, but something unique in sizes and all that. And so maybe we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the appetite where it's like, maybe this isn't going to be something we offer full time, but it's not uncommon that what you do is you say, hey, there's a really unique shape that we'd like to feature for this blend. And maybe we only make 1,000 boxes and we sell it once, but it's still something cool to try. And earlier this year, Punch came out with that egg roll, which was a great cigar. And it was a Lancero. Super fun smoke. So yeah, there's definitely an opportunity to work on Lanceros. So, let's try it, Ricky. I like the idea of doing the gold in a Lancero.
Okay. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. So I'm going to show you a tip. What we do in the factory. So normally we have a cigar, and this is where is it? It's the cigar. So when we're blending, and we discovered through the blending process, one or two blends are great, but they're causing some grief the blend. And so what we do is, where is the problem? The problem is on the wrapper or the blend. So what we do, and this is simple for you guys to do, and I hope that you can see it. What I did was cut the wrapper away from the cigar. So you see this top part, and this is another wrapper that we apply to protect the foot. So you simply take that off, and then you light your cigar like this. So you can see that the wrapper is missing for this area, and the wrapper. So when you light this, you're going to taste the blend. And don't pay attention. Don't look at your cigar. All right, it's almost there, because your mind will set up your palate. Something's going to change. When you do this technique like this and cut your wrapper away, simply start to, read or talk to your friends. Don't pay attention. And all of a sudden, there's an explosion of flavor. and you'll understand, oh, that blend is better without the wrapper, or you're going to say to yourself, the blend is causing you grief because that wrapper is great. So that is the technique we use. So it's simple for you guys to do this on your home. So take a razor blade, a sharp knife, and just cut that to about a third of the way off, and light the cigar and taste the blend only, and wait for that explosion of flavor. And when I'm doing the events, we're always saying 70% of the flavor comes from wrapper. Really, my hand was raising all the time when I heard that. How do you know that? Have you tested that? No, but we know the process that we put that tobacco through. We want to showcase that wrapper. So this is going to be a way that you can discover how much flavor that wrapper lends to your cigar. So I think it's a great thing to do. Two or three guys sitting around say, yeah, before we smoke it, I'm going to cut your wrapper off. We're going to smoke a little filler and wait for the explosion. And if you can say, hey, when it reaches this wrapper, you tell me, oh, that's 70% more flavor. There's no way you can, but you're going to say it was a lot of flavor come from that wrapper.
All right, Rick, we have one last question from Mr. Punch.
Okay.
He wants to know if you want to
Mr.
comment.
Punch.
From Mr. Punch.
Mr. Punch.
Yeah.
So he says that rumor has it that all CAO cigars are really just punch cigars.
No, you know,
They just have a different band on them. So what's your comment?
He's now, jumping the fence. When Doug and I were sleeping, he's in the factories stealing our blend. So anything that Punch is releasing today, outside of working with AJ, it's 90% of the time it's an old blend that he's just stealing for CAO. So, Mr. Punch, you are exactly what you are. A thief.
You know, I saw Mr. Punch on Twitter a little bit ago, and he was riding a tank. So I feel like he's spending most of his time goofing off than he is actually in the factory.
Thank you. So yeah, Mr. Punch, thank you for that question. But I think it was a reverse that. All right, guys. So we're just end this. I think get into that point. We have maybe 5 more minutes more. Any other questions that you want to answer, or Gary? Any more questions?
Let's see. So we did actually have one pretty interesting marketing question, which we could have Doug touch on this one too. If you guys had an unlimited marketing budget, is there any particular cigar or non-cigar related item, like, if you have any other companies that you would really like to partner with, if you had any budget, what cigar would you make, or like what product or accessory would you guys like to make?
We had an unlimited budget and we could do whatever we wanted. It would be fun to take some of our like classic tried and true blends like Brasilia and see if we could grow, the Arapiraca seed, that leaf, see like where else we could grow it. It would take us a couple of years to do the project because we'd want to say, okay, let's try to grow that in Peru. Let's try to grow that in Africa. Let's try to grow that in Indonesia. All the places that grow tobaccos but specialize in something. Let's try to take that classic seed, grow it somewhere else, and see what we can do with it. Because you're going to end up with a cigar that tastes way different. It might be terrible, but sometimes it's fun to try those different things out. But, there's always the timeline, which changes our ability to do things right away. So a lot of times we rely on growers to do a lot of those experimenting for us to say, ooh, we can now grow this tobacco in this region. But if you had an unlimited budget, you could go talk to some classic growers and be like, hey, can you grow this here? And they'd definitely be willing to try if you were going to pay them.
My answer for that question, unlimited budget, take every fan of CAO down to the factory to showcase the love and the passion behind every cigar that's made in the factory called CAO. Because once you go to the factory, we realize, yes, we work for a large corporation, but the smart thing that this large corporation, it allowed us to work separate. So we have 3 factories. We have one in Honduras, one in Nicaragua, and one in the DR, but they all run separate. So my would be simply to any fan out there, welcome, come and visit the factory, showcase the love, the passion behind the people, the projects, the tobacco, and really enhance your experience of smoking a cigar, because every time somebody goes to the factories, they walk away, wow, I didn't realize the passion that everybody I talk to has, from sweeping the floor to rolling cigars to fermenting the tobacco to harvesting tobacco. It's a hard job, but without the passion, we could not do it. And so I would say that simply take every fan of CAO to the factory and showcase what we do every day.
Yep.
Work on that budget for us.
Ricky, I think you should show up that t-shirt one more time and show everyone. They go to Cigar World, they can join your fan group, and that'll automatically get them registered to pick up one of those shirts if they win.
Yeah, everybody thinks it's Jesus, but it's not Jesus. It's Ricky when he graduated high school in 1978.
Look at that head of hair, man.
Look at this head of hair now.
It's better than mine.
So greased up. But
Yeah,
I haven't visited. I don't think I want to cut my hair until this craziness is over. So I hope it's over before the end of the month. But I need to do something. I need to do something with his hair. But guys, I really want to thank you, Doug. Thank you so much for being a part of this week. Join
Appreciate
us
it, man.
anytime you want to join us, because your input is valuable. They love to hear from you guys. Gary, again, great job. And Moose, without you guys helping us put this together, we couldn't do this, especially me, me. But thank you so much for taking this time of your busy day. And hopefully you learned 1 or 2 things that you didn't know about yesterday, and enjoy your cigar a little bit more tomorrow than you did today. Okay.
Great. Hey, appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Take care, guys. I'm leaving the meeting.
Later, Rick.
All right, man.